Hello, this is Tim Law with Planet Forward Coaching, and always encouraging your self-reliance in your life and career. If you'll set a goal by developing a good work ethic, a marketable skill, people skills, going the extra mile, there is no limit to what you can actually achieve as far as your life is concerned. A big thank you to over 430 people that have subscribed to this channel, Planet Forward Coaching. If you haven't already, please do so. And I'm really happy to have a gentleman here. We connected on phone a few weeks ago, Ljupco Stojanovski, and he is going to share his story about the Praxis Apprenticeship Program. I did one the other day with Madison Adkins and also with Mitchell Earl, and I'm just blown away by this whole process. So Ljupco, welcome, and tell us your story.
Absolutely, Tim. Pleasure to be here. Love what you're doing with Planet Forward Coaching. I guess the short synopsis, and I know you've had multiple guests from the Praxis program, but the big thing is putting your career growth and your personal development in your hands as opposed to anybody else's. There's no need for a credential anymore. There's really no need for a college diploma unless you're a doctor, an attorney, or an accountant or what have you. It's really taking the initiative in your growth and realizing that you're fully responsible for whatever happens and doesn't happen along that journey. So that's the best way I would summarize it. And in terms of impact, I mean, the impact has been tenfold. So just having that self-reliance, it's pretty hard to find nowadays, to be honest, especially some of the newer generation coming up with social media and everything. But it's made me really realize how much of an impact that my thoughts and my actions have on my growth.
Sure. No, very well said. Couldn't agree with you more. And again, that's one of the things that I'm always trying to encourage with Planet Forward Coaching is, self-reliance, because, if it's to be, it's up to me. Obviously, we want some friends and allies helping us along the way. I get that. But, and you made a good point as far as the social media. I'm seeing it, and it cuts through all ages. I'm not just picking on the young people, but I'm seeing a lot of enforced laziness because people, they just want to hang around and, stay on their phones, whether it's gaming or, TikTok or whatever. And I heard years ago, over 30 years ago, entertainment should be life's dessert, not the main course. It's a good quote. So tell us a little more about how Praxis has impacted you.
In terms of the actual program, right? So it's a pretty intense boot camp, I'd say, for 5 or 6 months. So really, I guess the main takeaway out of those, there's so much going on in that program and so much that you learn. But the big thing that I would say is the personal branding. So being able to market yourself with the experience you already have and being able to really showcase what value you bring. And just showing at this point that the job market's so competitive now, Tim, and you could see it because although students are coming out with bachelor's degrees, they're still not getting jobs. Why? Because employers, they want to see that you could do the job. So that's what Praxis is all about. They basically, you document based on this new era of social media, instant, like, information is constantly traveling. How can you prove to future employers that you could already do the job? The number one answer, like project-based, like, learning. So the next 5 or 6 months in that program, that's basically what you'd be doing is just a bunch of project-based learning. You're showcasing your skills and then you're marketing yourself to potential employers.
Sure. No, it makes a lot of sense because, you've certainly heard it enough, and I have too, is that, whether you come out with a degree or not, do you have speed and dependability as far as getting the job done? And you can have this various knowledge, but again, it's a case of that ability to have that personal power, the ability and willingness to take action in your life. And, if you can't bring the value to the company or the employer or whatever, it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to bring you on. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah. So give us some of your experience. Now, how long ago did you go through the Praxis program? And, just kind of give us those ideas. The thing that I really like about what I've heard so far is you pretty much get done for 1 year, and the amount of debt you have is minimal, if any, because you're working it out, so you can pretty much get hired on the other end of the 6-month boot camp.
Yeah, absolutely. So the job that you get after, I think starting, it's literally, it's the boot camp itself is between, I believe, 12 to 14,000. Correct me if I could be wrong, could have changed. But with that though, you really like the starting salary you get is right around 50 to 60,000. And honestly, the things you learn because you're at a startup. So it's not like you're at Coca-Cola stuck doing the same thing every day. When you're at a startup, there's so many things going on: sales, marketing, finance, operations. Like you kind of have your hand in everything. So the skills you learn, it's so marketable. So whether even if you're not in the income even if you're not in the position you want, rather, or the career growth you're in, by being in that position, by being in a startup environment, you have your hands everywhere. You kind of, whether you want to grow with the company or not, those skills, if you learn how to market and document the skills you learn, it's practically like the sky's the limit. You could really do, the growth is in your hands. You could do whatever you want at that point.
Sure. So with the skills that you've picked up and everything, what kind of work are you doing, at this point? It's kind of with your passion, and you're coming across as very passionate, which is very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I appreciate that, by the way. So right now, I'm at a real estate startup. I'm a chief operating officer. So just getting the operation in order. We want to start franchising eventually. That's the end goal. But it's a startup vibe. I love startups because you get to, if you're in a position of decision making and you have the passion, as you mentioned, you are in full control of whether the company grows or not. And if the company grows, you grow as a person as well. There's no such thing as a company growing and you staying stagnant.
Sure.
I've rarely heard that happen unless you're at like already a Fortune 500 company, let's say Lyft or Uber, where there's really no room for growth. The system's the system, and you kind of got to work your way up. But that's kind of what I'm doing right now and what my work entails.
Very good, very good. And the people that you're working with, how is that? Because obviously it does take a team, of go-getters and proactive people. How's the team that you're working with right now?
Yeah, right now, I could say right now we're literally in the early, like this is an early stage startup. So the only person I have we do have a team of 5 to 7 rather, but it's primarily me and the CEO. We're just planning, making sure the strategy's in check. We do have a sales team, 1 rep maybe, and then marketing. We're trying to get that up and running. So it's really, really, it's really early to say the least. But of course, like, the old saying as it goes, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. So I definitely resonate with that. You definitely need it takes a team, right?
Sure. And then the guy that you're working with as well, I mean, does he have the similar passion for this business that you guys are rolling on?
Absolutely. Yeah. He's been in real estate for about a decade now.
Okay.
I would look at him more as a mentor. So he's definitely helped me out. Like he's definitely like put me on the right track and keeping me. So it's more of like I guess the working relationship is he's the visionary, I'm the integrator. So that's kind of how we work. We work well together.
Yeah.
And we just want this thing to blow up. So that's kind of, like I said, that's kind of the work I'm doing right now, man.
Yeah. And how did you two meet each other?
So actually, I went into real estate. Like 3-4 years ago. That was one of my first jobs. So I was a sales intern, and I met him just through networking events, and we've always stayed in touch, kept in contact. And then when I felt ready to approach him and kind of tell him all the work that I'm doing, the Praxis program definitely helped us like speed that process up.
Sure.
But once I was able to showcase my work and showcase my value, I saw an opportunity. So I was like, yo, let's blow this thing up,
Good. Excellent. And what advice would you give to, let's say, somebody who's, let's say, a late teen, early 20s person, as far as the how they would get involved as far as Praxis, what the steps they have to do? Obviously, it's for movers and shakers. You got to pretty much be a blue chip action wise. You can't be a slug. You can't be lazy. That type of thing. Yep. And what would your suggestions be?
My suggestions, I mean, my recommendation, you definitely have to have the hustle. The hustle sold separately, right? You can't really you can't fake that. You got to be willing to work for it. It takes a lot of discipline, but more than anything, I guess the number one advice I would give is don't work for money, work for skills, right? Even though it's a lot, 6 months, you're in this intensive boot camp. You don't really honestly, you really won't see the fruits of your labor until after the apprenticeship. Right. When you see fully how much skills and just how much experience and everything you've acquired. So it's having the mindset of delayed gratification. And we touched on this before, Tim, that's like a lost art. Like delayed gratification, nobody wants, everyone wants the instant gratification. They go on, you order, nobody goes to the movies anymore. There's Netflix. Nobody wants, like, everything's on social media. Like, you just scroll up and scroll down. Even dating, Tinder, swipe left, swipe right. Like delayed, like delayed gratification though. If you could go in with that mindset,
Yeah.
I would not be in this position of career. I'm 24 years old. I would not be in this position career-wise, professional development, if it wasn't coming in with that mindset. So that's the number one thing. If I could preach anything, that's
Yeah.
what I would preach.
Well, and I really applaud what you're saying here as far as don't work for money, work for skills, because you're parroting beautifully some guy named Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know if you've ever read any of his stuff, but that's exactly what he did, because he's got kind of a pretty good real estate empire himself. But that's kind of what his philosophy's been. So
Yeah, that's the first book I read. I remember I dropped out of college. I was a mess. I'm trying to figure my life out. I picked him up. He's great. Yeah. That's
yeah,
definitely like life-changing book for sure.
yeah. How long were you in college for?
I would say, how long was I in college for? It didn't last too long, maybe like 2 years.
Mhm,
I was originally a history major
mhm.
because I loved history. I loved all that
Sure.
stuff. But then I'm just like, do I want it as a career? No, I didn't want it as a career.
Right.
Changed majors a bunch of times. Then I realized, listen, everything I'm learning here, it's not worth the debt. And 90% of business is sales and learning how to negotiate and that type of stuff. So that's
Mhm.
kind of the direction I went and why I dropped
Sure.
out.
Sure. And without being specific, what kind of debt did you accrue in those 2 years? Because when I was talking to Madison Atkins on the earlier one, she had
Yep.
said the amount off camera, which is fine. And but she, on camera, we were saying it was a considerable amount for 1 year. It had tapped out pretty good for her because she was in school for the 1 year. And as far as yourself, don't have to necessarily give a number, but was it fairly significant?
I don't mind giving a number either. To be frank, Tim, I was fortunate enough where I knew I didn't want that debt in high school. I
Right.
ended up going to community college.
Smart.
Luckily
Smart.
for me, yeah, it was dumb shit. It's literally like high school with ashtrays. That's the best way to compare it. But it's literally, if I could summarize it in a couple words, that's what was going on
Oh,
in that.
that's a great metaphor. Yeah.
But I mean, fortunate enough too. I grew up in Jersey. We're very liberal here, so community college, pennies on the dollar. So what I was thinking, I'm like, listen, I don't know what the hell I want to do. I'm not into school. I didn't even know Praxis existed at that time,
Sure.
but I knew I didn't want to go to college, and I knew I didn't want to do a trade school. So to be frank, that's the only reason why I went to community college. I don't regret it one bit. I came out with zero debt, luckily, fortunately, but like I saw the pattern, like, oh, come out with 100K debt and then work the rest of your life for that debt. I don't want to do that. For what? For 4 years of partying, for four
Right.
years of alcohol, drugs,
Mhm.
girls, and a degree that's not worth anything. It didn't really make sense to me, unless I was going to become a doctor.
Sure. Sure. No, that certainly makes a lot of sense. What as far as the position that you found yourself in there, as far as in New Jersey, how did you originally discover the Praxis Apprenticeship Program? Because Madison, I keep referring back to her. She happened to be working at a particular position. On her break, she was going through Twitter, saw a Twitter feed, and saw the Praxis Apprenticeship. How did you come across it?
Yeah. So believe it or not, I applied 2018, a year before I actually did it, or 2017. Yeah, 2017. Excuse me. I got rejected for whatever reason. Probably I wasn't as mature. Don't know. How I saw it the first time I saw it on I think similar Instagram, Twitter. I saw like an ad.
Right.
It seemed too good to be true. I was like, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
no debt. You're in a startup and you're learning business. Zero debt. Too good to be true. Second time when I applied, I got accepted, and that was in 2019. So, and I guess the second time, I just remembered that I applied, and I thought I grew personally, professionally. I thought I was a little more mature, and I was like, oh, let me give it one more shot, and then
Sure.
that's how I ended up getting accepted.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mitchell speaks very highly of you and Madison, for that matter. Now, the only thing that Madison said too was that you guys have a pretty neat community as far as other Praxis graduates. Do you stay fairly involved with that group?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's a Slack, as Madison mentioned, there is a Slack community. So everybody's in like a Slack channel. It's a very supportive group, because any questions you have, it's people of the same mindset. Like,
Yeah.
you got any questions, everybody's like entrepreneurial aptitude, like they're all like just hustlers, go-getters. So it's great to have that. It's sometimes it's hard, and I feel like we're the minority right now, unfortunately, like people like this, but
Sure.
it's good to have like at least a dedicated place, whether even if it's not a physical location, like just having that community online, like it's enough for me. If I have any questions, I tap in there,
Mhm.
and everyone's great. It's truly a unique community for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. She very much was, talked about that quite a bit. So obviously you got the ongoing support and everything, and it's worked out
Yep.
pretty well. Any last second thoughts here that you'd want to add, as far as the program? And then please stick around afterwards, like to chat with you once we're off recording here.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. I guess best thing, right? I guess is just a reminder. Like, listen, if you don't know what you want to do, you're not decided on college. If you don't know what you want to do, there's nothing that hurts to at least try this program, right? Like, you're coming out with virtually zero debt and highly marketable skills. Even if you want to use it as a gap year, let's say you're a little hesitant. Like, even if I know a lot of people do gap years prior to going to university, like this,
Sure.
to me, it's even valuable in that sense. It'll give you a little more clarity, and then even if you do want to go to university, at least you have clarity, because there's such a disconnect between high school and college.
Yeah.
My thing is, like, if you could go in and get some clarity, that would be good. But nothing but love from the Praxis team, and I appreciate your time as always, Tim.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. And just sit tight and we'll conclude this. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.